last year I had the same deal. I was leading after 2 rounds and then lost it, but so I was just not gonna let that happen this year. This will always have a special place in my heart for sure. This is one of my favorite tournaments, one of everybody's favorite tournaments that we come to, so I think we all enjoyed our time here.
From the first days I came, the day I practiced around with my dad, and then the next day came when I checked in. What I found especially special about this tournament was when I received that paper that said they were going to donate money to charities, because this year I've been more active in charities and leadership links, and then I found what they did was really good, and so that moved me quite a bit. Well, every time I come to this tournament, it's really special to me because there's a lot of games going on, like ping pong, and then they also have ice cream, and then it's just coming out here and enjoying the course with everyone.
Today we're speaking to Australia's ambassador to Iraq, Lyndall Sachs. Thank you very much, Lyndall.
Thank you very much, Dana. I'm delighted to be here.
Lyndall, Australia's had diplomatic relations with Iraq since the mid-1930s, but then we pulled out of Iraq in 1991 and didn't go back until 2004. So it's been an unusual kind of relationship. What's the situation now?
The relationship is very warm. It's a very enduring relationship. In the year that I've been here in Iraq, it has been a great opportunity to showcase the very best of things Australian. There is a great deal of strong support for the fact that we were part of the multinational force that overthrew the brutal dictator Saddam Hussein. And people are very interested in Australia. In addition to that, they're also very keen to work with us to try and maximise the opportunities that we in Australia can provide to the people of Iraq and the country itself.
Security is obviously a big issue living in Iraq. Is that a cause for concern, and how does it affect the way Australians do their jobs there?
Iraq is still a country very much in transition. It is still suffering the aftermath of the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein and also the sectarian war that erupted, particularly in 2006 and 2008. There are ongoing problems, and of course this is having implications for the country itself, but also for Australia and Australia's companies who may be willing to work there. Clearly, it is a country which is very dangerous in parts. Other parts of the country are quite stable. Our travel advice is very clear about do not travel, and we ask that if Australians are considering travelling there, that they read our travel advice very closely and they take into consideration the need to have adequate security in place. It remains a country where there are serious security problems in parts of the country.
As you said, Australia was part of the multinational force that ousted Saddam Hussein. What's the relationship like now between Australia and Iraq?
Australia is a very, very strong friend of Iraq. We see Iraq as a country in the region that has a lot to offer. Iraq is sitting on the world's biggest oil reserves, and this is providing many, many opportunities for Australia and companies around the world. And Australian companies need to be thinking strategically about this. There are many areas where Iraq needs a lot of assistance. And certainly from Australia's perspective, we have been providing a lot of aid over the last 8 or 9 years. We have a $360 million aid project over 5 years that we are implementing at present that is covering a range of areas. From governance issues to direct humanitarian aid, to health, to education, but also inclusiveness as well for disability, people with disabilities. There are many areas where the Australian aid budget is making a real impact on Iraqi society. We are doing some fantastic projects in the agricultural sector. This is an area where Iraq sees Australia as being of particular benefit to the country because our two countries share many areas of similarity: dry climatic conditions, problems with soil salinity, problems with water management. And we've been doing some very, very good projects with our Iraqi counterparts in trying to develop these areas. In addition to that, education is an area where there's a huge demand. Iraq looks to Australia as an alternative source for educating their students. This is a country that used to have an enormous pool of very, very well-educated people. And following the last 10 years of conflict and, of course, the Saddam Hussein dictatorship, a lot of that knowledge has been lost. And the Iraqis at all levels are very eager to take advantage of the excellent educational opportunities that Australia offers. In fact, there's probably around about 4,000 Iraqi-funded scholarships on offer at present for Iraqi students to come to Australia. And Australian universities are working very closely with their Iraqi counterparts to try and implement these opportunities.
You mentioned Iraq's oil reserves, which I understand are the largest in the world, and there seems to be enormous potential there, but Australia's trade relationship at the moment is fairly small with Iraq, I think only $380 million a year. So is Australian business doing more to try and take advantage of what's happening in Iraq, and what are the opportunities that you think are there?
I think many Australian companies are put off by the security situation, and yes, it is a problem. In addition to that, Iraq's business regulatory framework is a little bit uncertain at present. We do have some significant Australian companies working in Iraq, but the opportunities are enormous, and we need to work harder at introducing Australian business to the opportunities that there are in Iraq. Iraq is very, very keen. I constantly get asked by my Iraqi counterparts and of course ministries as well, saying, why isn't there more Australian business interest in Iraq? And I have to explain that first of all, Australian business is pretty much engaged in our region, and that there are complexities in working in Iraq. But certainly the opportunities are there, and I certainly encourage Australian business to think about Iraq as a potential area for cooperation, because the pickings are rich. The Middle East, of course, as we know, is a region where it's often about long-term relationships, and Australian companies can't just expect to come in and pick up the business opportunities. European business, American business, and particularly Chinese, Japanese and South Korean business are taking advantage of the many opportunities that exist there. And certainly we in the Australian Embassy and with Austrade, we're happy to talk with Australian business who may be interested in looking at the opportunities that exist there. Of course, one of the big areas is, of course, wheat. Iraqis love our wheat. They have for decades, and that is a big component of the trade relationship at present. But Australian meat is also something that the Iraqis are interested in exploring. But again, given the very strong interest in our agricultural sector, there are many opportunities for agricultural services to work closely with their Iraqi counterparts in Iraq to take advantage of the many opportunities that exist there. But this is a country where so much was damaged under the Saddam Hussein regime and of course the conflict over the last 8 or 9 years. So there is lots of opportunities, be it in construction, infrastructure, the services sector, in many areas there are opportunities for Australian business, and I encourage them to come and talk to us about what opportunities there may be there as well.
So in just a few words, how would you encapsulate the relationship?
Strong, enduring, and enormous opportunities there.
On a more personal angle, you're one of a growing number of Australian female ambassadors representing the country overseas. Can you provide a perspective on your life as a female ambassador and whether that has any implications for the way you go about doing your job in Iraq?
Obviously, in some societies, the role of women is much more conservative than it is in Australia, and this can sometimes present challenges, but most people recognise that I am representing the country of Australia, and so they can accept that. It does require at times perhaps a slightly different approach in how I conduct myself and my business with my counterparts, but this is part of the challenge of international diplomacy and how you work in these sorts of environments, understanding the culture in which you're working in, and how to present Australia as well in a way that furthers the opportunities that exist between our two countries. It makes for a few more challenges, but in some ways it makes my work more rewarding when I can build very strong and enduring relationships.
So do you find there are any specific implications for your work because you're a woman in Baghdad?
Not really. I recently went down to Karbala, which of course is one of the most holy cities in Shia Islam. And of course, I'm going to a very conservative community where women normally wear the abaya. As a sign of deep respect for what I was going to visit, I was happy to wear the abaya, and that won me huge plaudits from my Iraqi counterparts. And in many ways, that's opened more doors for me. I'm now being invited to many other areas as well. But as a woman, I can sometimes talk to people that men may not be able to talk to. And given that a big part of our relationship with Iraq is on the aid side, I've been able to go and talk to other women about their experiences of life in Iraq that a male ambassador may not be able to do. So there are certainly pluses in being a woman in this sort of environment as well.
Thanks very much, Lyndall, for speaking to us today.
Thank you very much, Dana. It's been a pleasure.
And that was Lyndall Sachs, Australia's ambassador to Iraq.